Hey YouTube, Twig here, bringing you all my Shinobird Yu-Gi-Oh deck profile for post the February 2023 ban list. With the latest ban list, we got Yugioh off of the list from 1 to 3. People realize it's not really that powerful of a card, but it can definitely be utilized in the Shinobird deck, a ritual spirit deck that focuses on being able to special summon out a good number of spirit monsters, getting around their summoning conditions, and then letting them stay on the field for that special summon, and then also being able to go into some other extra deck plays with some of the newer cards we got from the Photon Hypernova set. So let's go ahead and get started with the deck profile. So for the Shinobird monsters, for the ritual monsters, we are running 3 copies of Shinobird Peacock. You can ritual summon this card with Shinobird's Calling. It must be ritual summoned and cannot be special summoned by other ways. If this card is ritual summoned, you can shuffle up to 3 spell or trap cards your opponent controls into the deck. Then you can special summon 1 level 4 or lower spirit monster from your deck, ignoring its summoning conditions. Once per turn, during the end phase of this card was special summoned this turn, return it to the hand. If you do, special summon 2 Shinobird tokens onto the field. So that gives you extra deck access, but also just being able to summon out a spirit monster, ignoring its summoning conditions, gives you access to cards like Amano Iwado, or, like I said before, your go-to card, Yugioh, to shut down your opponent's draw phase. With this card just not having to take up your normal summon, since it cannot be special summoned, but you get around the special summon restriction with cards like Shinobird Peacock and also Shinobird Peacock, which we are running 2 copies of. If you want to mix and match, you could try 3 Shinobird and then drop the number of Shinobird down to 2, but it's player preference there. With Shinobird, you can ritual summon this card with Shinobird's Calling, just like the first ritual monster. It must be ritual summoned, cannot be special summoned by other ways. If this card is ritual summoned, you can return up to 3 monsters your opponent controls to the hand, and then special summon 1 level 4 or lower spirit monster from your hand, ignoring its summoning conditions. So it's basically like Shinobird, aside from this card going for spell and traps, your Shinobird goes for monsters. So there's the preference that comes down to it, whether you want to shuffle back and return those monsters or the spell and traps that your opponent has on the field. And then returning it to the hand afterwards and summoning out 2 Shinobird tokens, just like the Shinobird did for the first card effect. So it just comes down to which one you want to ritual summon out onto the field. They're both level 8 monsters, but if you have plenty of the ritual options for both, then you can use each one for the ritual play as well. For the additional ritual monsters we're running in the deck, I also run 2 copies of Transonic Bird. You can ritual summon this card with Sonic Tracker. Once per turn, you can reveal 1 ritual spell in your hand, add 1 ritual monster from your deck to your hand, whose name is listed on that card, and if you do, shuffle the reveal card into the deck, and then once per opponent's turn, quick effect, you can send 1 ritual spell from your deck to the graveyard. This effect becomes that card's effect, and that ritual summon of a monster when this card is activated. If this card ritual summon is distributed, you can target 1 face-up card your opponent controls and negate its effects. So Transonic Bird is just the search and setup needed for you to get the proper cards needed for your Shinobird monsters into your hand, and then for you to utilize against your opponent with the cards that you tribute, and also being able to stop an opponent's monster effect is just an added bonus from there. Now, for the actual Shinobird main deck monsters, you really don't need to run too many copies of them. They're more or less just spirit monsters that gain additional card effects while on the field. That's why we're only running 2 copies of Shinobird Crane. It cannot be special summoned once per turn if another spirit monster is normal or special summoned while this monster is on the field. You can draw 1 card, and once per turn during the end phase, if it was normal or flip face up, return it to the hand. So the draw power can come down to the fact that you can summon out 1 of your ritual monsters having this card on the field, and then just getting a draw from there, or even utilizing your Shinobird or Shinobird monster to summon out Crane onto the field, and then summon out 1 additional monster onto the field while that monster is normal or special summoned to get that draw from there. And I also run 1 copy of Shinobird Crow and 1 copy of Shinobird Pigeon. Once again, the special summons from your ritual monsters is just an easier way to get these cards out, so you don't really need to run too many copies of each one. And also, having the Shinobird Crow being able to discard a spirit monster and have it gain the attack to match up against some of your opponent's monsters, with some of your ritual monsters having some pretty high attack as well. And with Shinobird Pigeon being able to target 1 other spirit monster on the field and return it to the hand, and once per turn having that normal summon play just to get that monster back onto the field. It's a more specific play style, but still helps in specific situations when you just need that monster back into your hand. Let's say if its card effect was negated on the field by your opponent. For more of the actual ritual setup in the deck, I also run 3 copies of Diviner of Herald. When it's normal or special summon, you can send 1 fairy monster from your deck or extra deck to the graveyard. So this card is used to send your Herald of the Arclight, so then you can gain an additional search off of the monster you sent, and then having this monster gain the level helps for just being a tribute option to raise the level of this monster on the field to be used to hit those higher numbers for your Shinobird monsters. For some of the other spirit monsters that I run in the deck, I also run 2 copies of Yugioh. I know this card is now at 3, but I felt like 3 copies was way too much. You would open up Yugioh in your hand way too often, and you want to be able to just special summon this card off of your Shinobird cards. It cannot be special summoned, but once again, the Shinobird monsters get around the special summon restriction of your spirit monsters. During the end phase of the turn, if the card was normal or flip face up, return it to the hand, and if it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, skip the draw phase of their next turn. So you could potentially lock your opponent out if you use your bigger ritual monsters to destroy your opponent's monsters and then have your Yugioh swing for the attack damage against your opponent. If they have no cards in their hand, they're basically locked and not able to do anything else since they can't draw any more additional cards. For some of the other spirit monsters, I also run 2 copies of Nikitama. It cannot be special summoned during the end phase of the turn. It was normal summoned or flip face up, return to the hand, and during the turn it was normal summoned or flip face up. You can normal summon 1 spirit monster in addition to your normal summoner set, and you can only use this effect of Nikitama once per turn, and when it's sent to the graveyard, you can draw 1 card. So it can be used for a ritual setup for the ritual summon of your monsters, getting you that draw, or just being able to normal summon out an additional spirit monster on the field for you, along with being used with cards like Aratama, which I'm also running 2 copies of. And when this card having the same bounce plays as spirit monsters have, and when it's normal summon or flip face up, you can add 1 spirit monster from your deck to your hand. Having more of a search option as well. If you wanted to run full numbers of Nikitama and Aratama, you could always drop the numbers of the Shinobird monsters like Pigeon and Crow from the deck just to have more of a search and setup monster to rely on thanks to these cards. For the last of the spirit monsters for the main deck, I also run 2 copies of Amano Iwado, another great card to special summon out, just for the fact that with this card on the field, monsters cannot activate their effects, so it basically shuts your opponent down from being able to do anything, but when you're ready to use your own card effects, you can just overlay into another monster with your Amano Iwado. It doesn't give you special summon restrictions, it just means that monsters on the field can activate their effects, and it also has a pretty high attack stat as well, making it more difficult for your opponent to get over it on the field. And then for the rest of the main deck monsters, I run 3 copies of Impantation Candle, 2 copies of Talismandra, and 1 copy of Bookstone and Pencil Plume. Now, all of these in the deck just help for more of the ritual search and setup, with Candle and Talismandra being able to add the ritual spell and monsters from your deck to your hand, and Bookstone and Pencil Plume being able to recycle them back from the graveyard. They do lock you out of the extra deck, but they have high enough levels that you can use for the tribute plays for your Shinobird monsters, and then also give you the additional searches for them also. Moving on now to the spells, I run 3 copies of Shinobird's Calling. This card can be used to ritual summon Shinobaroness Peacock or Shinobaron Peacock. You must also tribute monsters from your hand or field, or banish spirit monsters from your graveyard whose total levels equal or exceed the level of the ritual monster you ritual summon. So you have your plays, and also if you set up more of your spirit monsters in the graveyard, you can even use them for the play right then and there. So having an additional ritual monster in your graveyard could even count as the needed tribute cost for the banish. So late game, if you have one and you have just the Shinobird's Calling and the ritual monster in your hand, that could be enough to go for a ritual summon right there with those cards. I also run 1 copy of Shinobird Power Spot. Spirit monsters you control gain 500 attack and defense. If a face-up wind monster you control returns to the hand, except during the damage step, you can add 1 spirit monster or ritual spell from your deck to your hand. You can only use this effect of Power Spot once per turn. It's a booster card. I considered running more copies of it, but it's more just a tech for the search, and since you can only use the effect of Shinobird Power Spot once per turn, that's why I decided just to run the 1 of copy in the deck to use. I also run 3 copies of Preparation of Rites. It gives you the ritual spell search, and then you have the search option for either of the 2 rituals, since your Shinobird's Calling specifies both the names of the 2 ritual monsters that we run in the deck as well. for the last of the spells, just 2 copies of Sonic Tracker for your search for Transonic Bird for the ritual play. And once again, with your play with this, it's another search for pre-preparation of rites, since the card name for Transonic Bird is also in Sonic Tracker and vice versa. And also with this card, you must tribute monsters from your hand or field whose total levels equal 4 or more. The level of the monster special summon by this effect becomes the total levels of the monsters used for its ritual summon. And you can banish this card from your graveyard, target 1 ritual monster you control, send 1 ritual monster with the same type or attribute from your deck to the graveyard, and then you can only use this effect of Sonic Tracker once per turn. So being able to target that ritual monster you control and send 1 can also set up other spirits in your graveyard for you to then use with your Shinobird's Calling. With the last of the cards for the main deck just being 2 of the Shinobird Salvation. If a face-up spirit monster you control returns to your hand, while this card is face-up on the field, except during the damage step, you can target 1 card your opponent controls, destroy it, and when an opponent's monster declares an attack, you can banish 1 spirit monster from your graveyard, negate the attack, and then end the battle phase. So just a pesky card for your opponent to get over, also giving you the play to destroy your opponent's cards just by doing what the spirit monsters in Yu-Gi-Oh! Normally do to begin with. And then for the extra deck, for the Synchro Monsters, 2 copies of Herald of the Arclight. We are running 3 Diviner of Herald, so if you wanted to run a 3rd copy of this, you could just take out one of the Link or Xyz monsters that we run in the deck. But for the Xyz monsters, 1 copy of Baguska, 1 Tornado Dragon, 1 Exciton Knight, along with 1 number 68 and 1 number 38 for the fact that the Shino Baroness and Shino Baron are both level 8 monsters, and 1 Zeus to overlay on any of the Xyz monsters that we make also. And for the Link monsters, I run 1 Dynamondo. For the special summon, you can't summon out your Shino Baron and Shino Baroness with this card, but you could summon out your Sonic Tracker using its tribute play. But also, if it's special summon, you can target 1 card in the field and 1 ritual monster in your graveyard, shuffle both into the deck, giving you a recycle power using this new card we got from Photon Hypernova. Also, 1 Lena the Light Charmer, 1 Win the Wind Charmer, 1 IP Masquerena, 1 Nightmare Cerberus, 1 Nightmare Unicorn, and 1 Access Code Talker to finish off the lineup for the Link monsters as well. If you wanted to add a 3rd Herald of the Arclight, you could always take out the Nightmare Cerberus or even one of the Charmers for that spot. As for some of the go-to plays in the deck, the ritual setup is a big part of it. So just having your search and then your spirit setup can come down to a pretty big part of the plays altogether, whether you go for the Sonic Tracker play or rely on your Impantations to give you that 1 additional search. Once you get your ritual summon for your Shinobird monster on the field, depending on how you summon them out, you can then use that Shinobird monster to have the play to summon out your spirit monster of choice. If you have one of the Shinobird monsters in your hand and you want to use the specific one, like your Shinobird Crane for the normal summon first, and then if you normal special summon another monster, so if you use Shino Baroness Peacock, you could special summon out that 1 additional spirit monster on the field and have that additional draw from Shinobird Crane, giving you more and more resources, which are the most important part of a ritual deck, just having cards to use for all of your ritual plays. But that is it for the deck profile. I hope you all enjoyed the video. And as always, until next time, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. And Kira Twig out.